Hello everyone and welcome to the Guildford Chess Club YouTube channel, a new venture, and I'm pleased to be the first person to record on this channel. I'm International Master Andrew Martin. Now, the reason for establishing this channel is that Guildford Chess Club is 125 years old this year, and there are lots of celebrations planned, the centrepiece of which is a massive simultaneous display including up to 375 players to take place in Guildford Town Centre on September the 11th, 2021. And registrations are invited to secure early access to play an array of England's top grandmasters, international masters and female players. The lineup includes Grandmaster Gawain Jones, Grandmaster Nick Pert, international masters Matthew Wadsworth, Nigel Povar and Andrew Martin, and former British Women's Champion Akshaya Kaliharlan and Jessica Miller, a former European Junior Champion. So a fantastic lineup, and so far we've got about 175 players lined up. We want more players, so if you're interested, come along on the day and you can play up to 3 players over the course of the whole day, which starts at 10:30 in the morning and finishes around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, just to show you what you're up against, I've chosen a couple of interesting games which a couple of the simultaneous givers have played over the last few years. And let me just show you one of Gawain Jones's efforts. This was played in a titled Tuesday online tournament in June 2021, and Jones is black against Pavel Skachkov. Okay, well, the opening was a Jones favourite, a King's Indian defence, where black basically allows white to take the centre in the opening. Woe betide you if you allow Jones to get onto the attack, because he is a fantastically skilled tactical player. And if you want to beat him in a simultaneous display, you're just going to have to positionally outplay him. And that is also not very easy. Now, the King's Indian is a very sharp opening because black allows white to take the centre of the board early in the game. And there are various ways by which white can lay out his pieces. It's dangerous to give a really skilled opponent a big choice of what to do, but Jones is confident that he can beat back whatever white offers him in this position. And white has played an opening called the Makaganov system after a Russian player, where white plays h3. And the point of this system is just to restrict black's counterplay early in the game. Well, Jones develops in a very standard fashion. And the thing about the King's Indian is that you've got to know with black when to take the centre, when to attack in the centre. Basically, the King's Indian is a counter-attacking opening. You let white set up in the centre, and then you have to hit back at the right moment. And you can do this with either e5, that's one of the moves, or c5. And basically, that is the choice. There are other ways to do it, but those two moves feature the basis of black counterplay in most King's Indian games. Anyway, Jones plays e5, and white takes some space by playing d5. Playing these positions is purely a question of taste. I know a lot of really strong players who would feel slightly uncomfortable with black's position because black's got a bit less space. But Jones will show that black can gain good counterplay from this situation. So the knight comes to c5, which is an improvement in position for black. Black lets out the bishop on c8 and attacks the pawn on e4. And white, suspecting nothing, just defends the pawn. I don't think white would want to take this knight because that gives up a very good bishop, admittedly for a good knight, but at the same time white needs that dark square bishop because at some stage he's going to have to think about combating the black square bishop on g7. But he can't do it if he exchanges off at this early stage. So most strong players will refuse the offer to take the knight and instead protect the pawn. And now Jones plays a5. Another good move because that cements the position of the knight on c5. White can't get rid of it using a pawn. And now here comes g4. Well, this is very much a thematic idea. It's what we call a thematic idea. It's a common idea. It occurs in a lot of Makaganov games. White gains a bit of space. He's trying to cramp his opponent to restrict his counterplay. And this is how really strong players often play. If they can restrict the opponent's counterplay, This gives them the chance to control the position. And when you're in control of the position, then you can dictate the play. C6. Jones is very quick to develop what we call counterplay. Now in chess, you can't just sit there and let the opponent do their thing, you know, dominate the position. You've got to fight against it. So the point of C6 is to open up the game as quickly as possible and try to gain what we call counterplay, a counter-attack against the enemy position. The thing about White's game is it's great if White's allowed time to sit down on the position and gradually get a grip. So Black's aim in this position is not to allow that. He's got to gain counterplay to stop White from getting this grip on the position. As you can see, White's proceeding in a kind of leisurely fashion, and now Jones strikes out with b5. And this is an interesting move because White's got two pieces attacking that pawn and Black has got only one piece defending it. So the basis of the idea, I think, can be seen if White plays knight takes b5, which I think would be a mistake because Black would take the knight, White would take back, and now comes the killer check on a5. And we take advantage of the unprotected bishop on b5. White will either block the check or move the king, and Black will take the bishop. So Jones is hoping to gain counterplay by these means. Now we just back up a few moves here. Obviously, White can take with the bishop here, but then it's exactly the same. A check. Yes, White can save the knight, but now Black has very good counterplay on the open queenside files, and White has not been allowed to dominate the game. So Black has very good counterplay here. Now, if we just drop back to the game itself, White preferred after b5 to play queen to d2, but this allows Black to push on. One feature of Jones's play is that he manages to play with great energy. This is a characteristic of his, and you're going to have to match that energy if you come to play him in the simultaneous display. White falls back. Black brings the queen out into the game, nice and aggressive, and White plays h4. Well, this is again thematic for this system, you know, but White's play gives the impression of being very, very slow, whereas Black now is motoring forward at high speed, and he motors even further forward with the extraordinary move a3. It's very unusual to have pawns confronting each other very close to the white end of the board so early in the game. We're only on move 16. But this situation obviously unsettled the white player, who's a strong master, by the way. He decided to get on with his attack, or so-called attack. I don't see any attack there, but maybe he thinks there is. But that runs straight into a crushing move, pawn takes pawn, undermining White's whole position. Knight to a4, winning a piece. White resigned. It wins a piece because the knight is what we call pinned by the queen against the king. And the knight on a4 is not only attacking the knight on c3, it's attacking the white queen. So White is losing a piece in broad daylight and decided to resign. So if you play Jones in the simul, the very best of luck. He's a tremendous player, fantastic tactician, and he plays with great energy. Now, moving on, we come now to another game, which I'm going to show you. And it's a game from a guy called Nigel Povar, who's an international master. I've known Nigel for many, many years, and he's always been a fantastic chess enthusiast, as well as being a master player. And I'm going to show you one of his games. He's going to be another simultaneous giver on the day. I think he's a former British over 60s champion, a senior champion, and so not a person who you can underestimate. He's known for his great opening knowledge. So if you want to catch him out in the opening, you're going to have to find something very, very deep. So Nigel is white, and he's playing black against a guy called Link. And this game was played in a seniors event, I think the World Senior Championship in Dresden in 2018. And in this particular game, Povar played one of his favourites, what we know as the London system. Well, this is actually known as the Jabava London system, after a grandmaster called Jabava, who kind of mixed some queen's pawn ideas. Normally in the London system, white goes e3, and then he might even play c3. But the Jabara London system is totally different. White plays knight c3 instead, and the position is much sharper because white is developing pieces instead of pushing pawns. Well, black played d6. Nigel took the centre, and then he backed up his bishop by playing queen to d2. And one of the ideas of this is to move straight away into black's position and take away the valuable fianchetto bishop on g7. The idea is that black is going to probably castle on the king side, and if you get rid of that bishop, it's easier to attack the black king position. So quite a sharp idea. Anyway, Lenk didn't seem too worried. He invited white's queen into his position, and he plays c5. Again, with the idea of counterplay. I mentioned this on the last in the last game, and that's exactly what black is trying to do here. Povar castled on the queen side. One of the most instructive things you can gain from this position is that both players are trying not to lose time in the opening. Black is trying to get his act together with gain of time, for instance drawing the white rook out into the centre and then attacking it, and white is trying to avoid losing time. Yes, the rook is attacked, but white can defend the rook and at the same time move a new piece into the game. So this is something newcomers to the game and average players can learn from. Master players do not like to lose time in the opening phase of the game. Time is a crucial element in building up a good position in chess. So Lenk played a6, and what this is going to boil down to is who has the more aggressive pieces, who is better placed to attack. And I would say it's white for several reasons. Number one, it's easier to see ways to get the white pieces into the game. I mean, for black's got to worry about these pieces on the queen side and this rook on h8. All of these pieces don't seem too easy to develop for me. Number two is the position of the kings. White has already castled. That king seems very safe on c1. Black's king is stuck in the middle. So it's another little tip for the average player. Don't leave your king lying around in the middle, especially against strong players, because you can be completely destroyed by a winning attack. If you plan to play in the Sybil, get castled early. A basic principle of chess. Of course, this is not what black does in this game. He continues trying to gain some counterplay, but unfortunately here, Nigel can play knight takes knight. And this is perhaps a move which black thought was impossible, because why can't black take the rook? And now there seems to be a couple of white pieces there hanging in the air. But Nigel has seen everything, and he moves in with a bishop check, displacing the black king. King moves. Queen to g7. Turns out white doesn't need to worry about this knight on e5, which is attacked, because he's counter-attacking against the black rook in the corner. And this is yet another thing you have to understand against really strong players, about really strong players. They're usually very good tacticians. That means they can calculate a long way. They can spring combinations on you at any moment. So you've got to be on the ball when you play these players. And, well, black here has real problems with his rook. He had to play it to e8. And now another very good move by Povar, knight to d3. Just leaving black disorganised. Black is what we call the exchange up, rook for knight. But at the same time, he cannot save this rook on e8. There's no square for it. So white can really regain material at his leisure here. So seeing nothing better, black gets on with the process of trying to create counterplay. Nigel takes the rook, why not, thank you very much, and now moves in, taking advantage of a pin. This knight is pinned against the queen. And now white is threatening checkmate in one move. Not easy to stop. Black stopped it with his rook. Now comes another accurate move, knight takes knight, forcing black's hand. Black cannot take with the pawn, because if he did, the rook on a7 would be hanging, so he's got to take with the queen. Now comes a check. Again, very uncomfortable for black. King moves out, blocking the bishop. And now white just plays f4. White can take his time. White's got what we call coordinated pieces, whereas black is all over the place. His pieces are not doing anything, not working together, and his king is displaced. Rook c7. Black's trying to get his act together. Rook to d1. This is why you shouldn't leave your king in the centre, because it can be attacked, even by a relatively small army that white has here, queen, rook and knight. The black king is in a terrible mess. Rook a7, he can't think what to do. e5, white powers forward. Black takes. A miserable move. But what is he to do? He's in a terrible predicament here. King is stuck in the middle. That's all you need to know. He takes. Knight takes e5. Double check. Check from the knight. Check from the rook. To try and survive one of these double checks is virtually impossible. Lenk played king to c7. And now Nigel plays a move I really like. Something cool. He just played g3. Taking away any of black's tactics. Leaving black disorganised. Queen to e6 was played. And now white decides to finish this game by taking all of black's kingside off. And with black unable to muster any sort of defence at all, he decided to resign. So you've got your work cut out on the chessboard when you come and play in our simultaneous display. But you won't have a better chance to play somebody really, really strong. It promises to be a great day out for all the family. There'll be a lot of fun, a lot of prizes involved. And who knows, you might have the chance to join Guildford Chess Club yourself.